Betty.
Much Francis Mtalaki for the details there. He's going to be keeping us updated on what's happening in Taita Taveta. All right, let's come back to my conversation here in studio with Dismas Mukwa. He's a political risk analyst. And Dismas, we're talking about, the strategy that John Nyagarama has employed, which of course makes sense for him, trying to defend his seat. Let's broaden the conversation and just talk about the whole process, how it has been for the last couple of days, and especially with what happened in Busia. What is your analysis or assessment of the primaries so far, even as we wait for Jubilee on Friday to hold their mini election?
For me, I think as a nation, we've got a very good constitution, but we do not respect law and order. Like, for instance, we borrowed the presidential system from the US.
Right.
And one would have expected that we follow it A to Z. In the US, you've got so many states, but it's not the individual parties that do their party primaries. It's up to the individual state organizations. Like, for instance, in Kenya, we should have an organization similar to IBC or IBC itself doing the party primaries, given that the parties are funded by the taxpayer. So when you're giving money to an organization like ODM, Wiper, Amani National Congress, then we expect that they must be responsible to Wanjiko, to the taxpayer. So now it beats any sense or logic to give them a lot of resources and then the parties run like a private members club, which is the case today. Like, for instance,
but are they really getting a lot of resources?
Well, even
especially in monetary fund?
No, they get a lot of money, and even if they don't get a lot of money, even if it's only $1 million per year, still that's a taxpayer resource, and they need to be accountable. The figures are all over. It's a figure in a dispute. So you'd have expected an organization like IBC to be running these party primaries so that there's a bit of decency. Like, for instance, in Taita Taveta, it's now 10 o'clock, 10 hours later, the folks went to the polling station early in the morning, they're yawning away, they're waiting to go and vote. And that could be a strategy by one of the participants. Maybe, if that's not his stronghold, then you ensure that you frustrate the voters, they go back home. And that's why early on Thero was speaking about Nyamira, because, people would like to go and milk their cows, take care of their tea and their coffee estates, maybe before going to vote, or maybe they want to vote the first thing and then go take care of their business. But if you frustrate people that way, then people who had the intention of casting the ballots, they would take a walk, they go back home. So essentially, you're frustrating democracy. And I think as a nation moving forward, and one hopes that we are going to get some bright legislatures coming to the National Assembly and Senate so that we can have new pieces of legislation. We ensure that it's IBC which is going to run the show. And you can be sure that if it was IBC, they would have been there at 6 o'clock and people would have cast their ballots.
But there are also places that have had the process run very smoothly, and the defeated have been defeated and they've gone home, and now they're waiting now for the big day.
Well, since we started the ODM party primaries, I don't recall a place where it's all been peace and everybody has been happy. When you look at the case of Busia Sospeter Ojaamong, one fails to understand how a participant is the same person who is providing logistics. Because, in Busia, Ojaamong was doing the transportation and even paying drivers. That's why, probably under his instruction, the drivers in the middle of the night decided to disappear. And, they brought everything into question. And also one cannot understand how you can have two constituencies having almost 100% voter turnout. That cannot happen if you've got an independent body like IBC taking over, running those party primaries. And I think maybe moving forward, as citizens, that's what we must fight for. Because you see, Betty, the reason why party primaries are so useful, it's the fountain of democracy. If you poison that well, it means that you are encouraging mediocrity in the National Assembly. There are so many people who are going through these party primaries, not because they are the top of the range or they are, the best minds you have around, but it's simply because they can frustrate voters. Like, for instance, in Taita Taveta, you can imagine somebody who's been at the polling station for 10 hours, now they're yawning, they want to go back home and take care of their families, meaning that you may not necessarily get the best talent going to the National Assembly or even taking over as a governor. And that one has got an impact in our socioeconomic lifestyles, because right now we keep on saying our peers are South Korea and Singapore. But how come we are not in that space? It's because we have mediocrity in our national leadership. The people who are now going to win in the party primaries, they're winning not because of their intellectual infrastructure leadership, but simply because they are very